today I want to talk about mental clutter because I don't think I've touched on that yet. And I really want to cover kind of three ways, because there's loads of different ways to reduce your mental clutter. But what I want to talk about today is how, when you're feeling in the moment overwhelmed, that you've just got so much stuff in your head, how you can immediately fix that. Because there are kind of ongoing things that you can do and little habits and routines you can get yourself into to reduce that mental clutter. But what I want to cover today is really when you're in that moment of feeling, oh, crap, like I can't concentrate or I can't focus because there's too much in my head. So that's what I want to touch on. So there's three little steps to that. Yeah, and I think it's really important to touch on mental clutter because, as I've mentioned a few times in this group, I do help and support people reduce clutter in their lives, and it's not just the clutter that everyone automatically thinks of, which is the clutter in your home, the physical possessions. And when you say the word clutter, people automatically kind of go to that area, which is perfectly normal to do. But actually, clutter isn't just the stuff that are all over your floor and filling all your cupboards. Oh, morning, Sarah, lovely to see you. It can come in many different forms, and it can be in your head as mental clutter. So these are things like any thoughts or ideas or feelings, any reminders, to-do lists, anything like that that you've got just floating around in your head that actually really takes up a lot of time, energy, and mental space that can be used better elsewhere, really. And carrying, I don't know about you, but when I carry too much mental clutter, I feel really lethargic. I feel confused. I'm less productive, less focused. I'm just like, if my husband tries to have a conversation with us, it's like getting blood out of a stone. And again, I suppose I have struggled a little bit more with it the past year with my long COVID as well. So anything that would normally have been not much of a problem for me in the past, where I could probably mentally cope with it, I do struggle with that now. So anything more than, like the other day when we were out in the car and we had the radio on, my husband was talking to us, the kids were chatting in the back. It was just too much for us. It was just like mental overload. So it's just little things like that. It can make you feel so overwhelmed and confused, and your brain is working so hard to keep up with all this mental clutter that tell me what you get with this, but I start missing things. I forget things. My husband calls me really forgetful. I might make mistakes, or I might make some decisions that probably weren't the right decisions to make at the time. But it's just because there's too much stuff in your head that you can't function at your best. So just how in your home, when there's clutter everywhere and you can't function properly in your home, and it may take you forever to cook a meal because you've got so much stuff in your kitchen, it can be exactly the same with your mind as well. So finding better ways to manage this mental clutter, it's going to really help you to reduce the stress and increase your focus and your connection to people as well. And hopefully that'll lead to you feeling much more calm and content and peaceful. And who doesn't want to feel like that, to be honest? And I again, if there's, I know that we've got a lot of parents in here, but I don't know about you, but when I moved into transition from Hayley the married woman into Hayley the mother, good grief, there was a huge increase in the mental load, that the mental clutter that I had. And that's normal. I think that's to be expected, but there's so much to keep track of, remember, and it can really feel overwhelming, especially when they go to school. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot of letters come home, a lot of events, and then when they're in different year groups, goodness me. But yeah, mental clutter, it is a part of life, but it doesn't have to get the best of you. It's about finding ways and little routines and little habits that you can get yourself into to reduce it. But as I say, this video is more about when you're in the moment, you're panicked and you're thinking, I've got too much on my mind, I can't concentrate, I can't focus. You may have just snapped at the kids, which you don't want to be doing. And what do you do at that moment in time? So number one is, this is my first tip. The quickest way to reduce the mental thoughts going on in your head is to literally get it out of your head. And I love a brain dump. So grab a bit of paper and just write anything that is in your head. And don't worry about making it neat or having it in buckets of certain things. Just don't worry about that at the moment. That's kind of like the next stage. But all I want you to do is to grab a bit of paper and write it out. And it can be anything. It could be like how you're feeling in that moment. So it could be feelings and emotions, but it can also be things that you need to do. So you can say, right, I need to book the doctor's appointment. I need to go to the shop and buy X, Y, and Z. I need to ring the vets. Things like that. Just get anything out that is in your head onto the paper. And it really stops you carrying it in your mind, because instead of having to remember it and recall it, you've got it written down in front of you. Sometimes what I do is I've got a little notebook in my handbag, so I have it round with me at all times. And if there's something I need to remember to do, I either write it down there or I use it in my notes in my phone. And I'm trying to transition more to electronic. I have in the past always been a bit of a paper and pen girl, but I'm trying to transition more to electronic, just because it reduces me using paper, but also I can access it on my phone and on my laptop wherever I am as well, and it doesn't rely on me. Perhaps I may have took that notebook out of my handbag and not put it back in. So that's a little option for you as well, as to maybe do it electronically. But it stops you having to pull things from your mind and constantly and try and process that. It's basically getting it into some form that you can process it properly. So add things that you need to add to your calendar, any events that are coming up, and anything that you need to perhaps spend time to think about or process. Get it down on paper or electronic note. And while you're doing that as well, it's a good process for you to just be like, well, is this for me to do, or can someone else do that? So cross anything that doesn't really need to be on there. It might be in there because you're so overwhelmed, but as you're processing it and writing it out, it might dawn on you, actually, this isn't for me to do. That's something that my child needs to do or my husband needs to do. So process that. But first of all, just get it down on paper or electronic notes. Then step 2 of this process is really to use that information that you have just thrown out on the paper into a to-do list. But really, what the some people, I know some people don't like the term to-do list, but for me, this is really the only way that I can find a way to get things done and keep structure to it. I don't tend to call it my to-do list. I've got like just a Trello notepad. If you've not heard of Trello, it's just an online thing you can access on your phone, on your laptops, on your PCs, wherever you've got internet connection. They've got apps. And it's just like little post-it notes, and I just have a one in there just called head. And it's just anything that's in my mind at that point just goes onto the Trello board, and then I sort out it later. And the good thing about it is that you can move these little post-it notes around to different areas. So perhaps if you've got them on different days to do, you can sort it however you want. You can do it by days of the week, or you can do it by just actions like home or personal, things like that, whatever you want to do. But the purpose of this is just to keep it really simple, realistic, and prioritized for you to do. It's got to work for what you and how your mind works as well. So rather than keeping mentally track of what needs to be done in your head, get it out onto this paper and start to prioritize it. So what you want to do is start by organizing each of the to-dos. Pull out all of the to-dos that you wrote down on your brain dump and start to put them by order of priority. So start with the things that need to be done ASAP. So if you know, for example, you need to immediately book a doctor's appointment for your child, that goes to the top of the list. And then what you want to do is rank them by order of priority and start scheduling when you'll do each task. So just prioritize what's essential. Anything that's not essential, you can either remove it or put it off to another day. And that really helps you focus on the things that need to be done in the here and now. And then it lets you kind of release some energy for the things that need to be done later on. But for now, you can park them. So just having that to-do list, the prioritized to-do list, really helps. But keep it short, keep it realistic. Don't overwhelm yourself. You may have, say, 10 really important to-dos to do on there, but try and keep it to, say, top 3 per day. I'm a big fan of using 3 just because I think that is quite realistic to do. It's not overwhelming. You don't have all of this top 10 to do, and if you don't do it on that day, then you're going to beat yourself up. Try and keep it to 3 priorities in a day if you can. If there are things that you need to try and get done on that day, but it's not urgent, add it underneath that top 3. But this is how I structure it in my Trello board. I just have the days of the week. I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then each of my to-dos are in one of the little cards. And then I put 3 in each box, which are my must-dos. And then anything else kind of it is a try to get done if I can do. And as I say, just try and keep it really realistic for what you're able to accomplish. So on that as well, I usually have things if I've got separate meetings or appointments to go to. I will also include those as well, just so I can see at a glance if that day is going to be pushed for time. Because what I might say is that, you know what, I might just move that to another day, because having 3 to-dos on that day when I've already got 2 meetings and an appointment to get to, it's just not realistic. So be kind to yourself as well, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself, and you're going to discourage yourself from doing it. So take that brain dump, pull out all of the to-dos and break them down into priority order, and then schedule them on your calendar. So then number 3, which we missed, is schedule your future tasks. So anything that doesn't need to be done immediately, still get those in the calendar. If there's any kind of links or information that you need in order to do that task, make sure it's included in the information that you put. So if you put a calendar task or a little note in your calendar to do it on a certain day, include in there. Just with it being a little bit more out into the future, you may not necessarily have the information to hand off the top of your head, which will then stress you out a little bit more. So make sure you've got that information in your calendar for when it needs to be completed, so you can just get on straight away and get it done. And yes, it's not something that needs to be done, but the fact that you can then pop it into your calendar and know when you're going to do it, it's still kind of a tick off moment where you're like, right, I can deal with that later, and you can forget about it. It's out of your head and it's not taking up that mental space. So that was the 3 tips, and essentially you can't control all of the circumstances that contribute to your mental clutter on a daily basis. That is for sure, particularly over the last year and a half. It's been quite difficult. But there are things that you can do to impact how that mental clutter feels to you and how you respond to it. So being able to better manage it and make your life less stressful when these things happen, because inevitably they will. It's part of life. It just makes things a lot easier for you on a day-to-day basis. So hopefully this video works. It seems to be working, but we'll see when I click end. But yeah, let me know if you've got any questions on any of this. It was 1, brain dump, get everything out there. Don't make it pretty, just get it on there. Number 2 is to pull the to-dos out, prioritize them, schedule them 3 per day. And then anything that needs to be done in the future, it's kind of a important but not urgent tasks. Make sure that you get those in your calendar as well, with the relevant information for further down the line, something that you can do at a later date. But that is how I reduce the mental clutter in my mind. It's just a daily routine for me now to sort everything out that's in my head and get it sorted and get it down physically out of my head onto an electronic format. So my head, yes, I do get overwhelmed. Obviously, I'm not saying I don't, but being able to manage the things that I can manage makes it a lot more manageable in here. So let me know if you've got any questions, if you've got any suggestions about how you manage mental clutter on a day-to-day basis as well. Pop it into the comments, and people would love to see your suggestions, I'm sure. But let me see if this worked. I'll click end now, and I might be back in 5 minutes redoing it again, so who knows. But yeah, have a lovely week ahead, and I will speak to you in the group. Bye.